Welcome to Hello Houston. Coming up this hour, we'll dive into today's top stories, including the Texas Legislature's second special session ending without regulating or outright banning THC products in Texas. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also speak with Rick Sharga, the CEO of the C.J. Patrick Company, who'll discuss foreclosures being on the rise right here in Houston and around the country.
Plus, we'll also learn about the Recipe for Success Foundation's Back to School First Saturday Market this Saturday.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org and clicking the big orange banner.
All this and more right here on Hello Houston, right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is appearing before a Senate Finance Committee where disagreements over his public health policies cross party lines. He's defending layoffs and budget cuts at the agency. Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, whose support was pivotal in Kennedy's confirmation, flagged this concern.
An email from a physician friend of mine. Hey, Bill, I'm not even sure what I'm asking you, but we're all confused and concerned about who can get the COVID vaccine. We are having our attorney try and render an opinion, but there's no firm guidance and concern about liability if vaccines are given to a patient who requests it but not on the current CDC list. Pharmacists are requiring a prescription now even for patients over 65, creating a huge headache. I submit these for the record.
Without objection.
I would say effectively we're denying people vaccine.
Kennedy has raised concerns about the effectiveness of vaccines, a position which critics focused on during his Senate confirmation hearing. The District of Columbia is suing to stop the president's deployment of the National Guard in D.C. And Maryland's governor and the mayor of Baltimore say they also oppose the idea of President Trump deploying National Guard troops to the city to combat crime. Scott Massioni with member station WYPR says some Baltimore residents took to the streets yesterday.
Your National Guard not welcome here!
Baltimore residents pulled together an overnight protest after President Trump once again threatened to send the National Guard into the city, claiming it would lower crime. Karen McDonald was one of the protesters in the crowd.
We all see the stats in the news about how crime has been decreasing over the past 30 years here in Baltimore. I think there are real strategies that are working. I don't think the National Guard is going to solve anything that the city isn't already solving for itself.
Trump's comments come as the city records historic decreases in violent crimes, including homicides. Last month, the city saw 7 homicides, the lowest for that month in half a century. For NPR News, I'm Scott Massioni in Baltimore.
Hamas says it's willing to release all remaining Israeli hostages if Israel ends the war in Gaza. Here's NPR's Daniel Estrin.
After President Trump called on Hamas to release all hostages, Hamas reiterated its long-standing offer to do so. Israeli leaders called Hamas's statement spin and demanded it disarm. Israel is vowing to launch a major offensive in Gaza City. On Wednesday, Israelis protested near Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's home. They called to end the war. Protester Yael Agmon.
The lives of the hostages are way and far more important than continuing to destroy Gaza and kill innocent civilians and risk the lives of the Israeli soldiers.
After protesters lit a fire and a nearby car was burned, Netanyahu compared the protesters to fascist gangs. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
It's NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Jack Williams. A Houston man accused of shooting and killing an 11-year-old boy during a late-night prank is being held in the Harris County Jail on a $1 million bond. 42-year-old Gonzalo Leon Jr. was arrested earlier this week by a SWAT team 20 miles from his home. News 88.7's Bianca Seward has details on what police found when they searched Leon's home and why the death penalty is off the table.
11-year-old Julian Guzman and his cousin were pulling a prank on Leon's home just before 11 p.m. Saturday, when Leon allegedly fired at the kids, striking Guzman in the back. Prosecutors pushed for the high bail after police reported finding about 20 firearms in the defendant's home, including AR-style rifles, shotguns, and pistols. Leon also had a previous arrest in 2019 for a, quote, terroristic threat. Speaking on Hello Houston, District Attorney Sean Tier outlined his next steps.
The investigation has to slow. We slow it to a crawl. We work through the ballistics evidence. We canvass the entire neighborhood.
Tier explained why they won't seek the death penalty.
The legislature, when they wrote the laws, if it is a child under the age of 10, you're eligible for the death penalty. Between 10 and 15, it is a life without parole.
I'm Bianca Seward, News 88.7.
The STAR test will soon be phased out. Lawmakers gave final approval last night on a bill that changes the way students are tested. The key component of the bill requires students take 3 shorter tests spaced out over the year as opposed to a single test. Representative Brad Buckley says the change was needed.
This bill ends the STAR test. It creates a very much different system that is way less high stakes for our students.
Governor Abbott is expected to sign the bill. It goes into effect starting in 2027. And the Federal Aviation Administration is investigating why a plane had to make an emergency landing in Houston late yesterday. The agency says smoke in the cockpit forced the airplane to turn around. It stopped on the runway after returning and had to be towed back to the terminal. Sunny and hot the rest of the day, the high of around 95, 84 right now here at the University of Houston. I'm Jack Williams, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include BetterHelp, committed to helping clients with issues ranging from relationship challenges and goal setting to grief and depression. Learn more at betterhelp.com/public. This is NPR.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston. We're back. It's Thursday, September 4th. Thanks for joining us. Today, Ernie is out on vacation, but he will be back next week.
Really?
Yes.
Have you heard from him that he's going to be back? Or you're just assuming because he's been out for 2 weeks?
Yeah. But we miss Ernie. He needs to come back. He needs to come back.
How was your morning run?
My morning run was busy. I have to tell you, it was 9 a.m. and I had already run to H-E-B really quickly and come back. And yes, but it was good. And it felt nice out.
Did you run?
Felt really good. Run, yes.
Wow.
Felt good.
Yeah. Well, the northwest flow is keeping the upper atmosphere a little drier.
Yes.
And if you notice, there's not a cloud in the sky.
No. And you're way up in the sky now.
No, I am way up in the sky. Darn right. So it's going to continue to be on the sunny side tomorrow. And then Saturday, I think Saturday is going to be a pretty good day. Great. There's this Tropical Storm Lorena in the Pacific. We talked about this yesterday. Moisture from that will wrap around through Arizona, New Mexico, the Panhandle, and then into Texas. Looking at the newest models, it doesn't look like it will make much of a play for us. Mm-hmm. So maybe a little rain Sunday.
Okay.
And that's really about it. Now, I'm watching the tropics back in the Atlantic. There's an 80% chance of development of a system that's come off of Africa. So that looks like
We got an email about that.
Really?
Somebody asking us about that. Why have we not talked about it? And so I'm glad you're bringing it up. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's going to develop. I don't have any question. Okay. It's over. The conditions are right. Mm-hmm. The dust is not an issue like it was in July and August. So we're out of that. So I think it'll develop. Now, where does it go? European model doesn't really go out that far yet, but the American model suggests that it could make a play for South or North Carolina. Now, that honestly, in my experience, that means nothing right now until it really forms, and it hasn't formed yet, and you know where the center of the storm is. When you know that, you can make a much better forecast of where it might go. Okay. Right now, it's all conjecture of where the center might form, but sometimes the center forms 40 miles north of where we thought it was going to form. And that makes a huge difference in where it's going to end up. In other words, if you don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going.
Okay. So
once we know where it is, and it actually forms, then we'll know better where it might go. And I don't ever rule out the Gulf on these things until it ain't over till it's over.
Right. And we're going to continue to monitor everything that's going on in the Gulf.
The Gulf. We'll stop right there. The Gulf. We all know what the Gulf is. You can call it the Gulf of Frank if you'd like. But that's it. I'm not calling
Frank
it
is going to continue to monitor the Gulf for us, but we've got you covered right here on Hello Houston. And if you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for joining us. And if you're joining us on 88.7, again, thank you for tuning in. We have a lot to cover today. Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Rick Sharga, the CEO of C.J. Patrick Company, about foreclosures being on the rise right here in Houston and around the country. But first, the headlines. The Texas Legislature ended another legislative overtime round without banning or further regulating most THC products after a months-long fight between lawmakers to rein in the exploding hemp industry. The Texas House gavelled out of the second special session late Wednesday, leaving behind Senate Bill 6, which would have broadly banned consumable hemp products with any detectable amount of any cannabinoid. That means most forms of consumable hemp-derived products stay legal in Texas. There also remains no age limit on who can purchase these goods, which come in the form of gummies, smokable flowers, and drinks. Yet it is now legal to sell, but not possess, THC vape pens under a separate law passed earlier this year that went into effect on Monday. What are your thoughts on the Texas Legislature's failure to regulate THC products? Are you for or against this policy? Now is the time to give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870. Or, as always, we continue to monitor our email at talk@hellohouston.org.
I have a conundrum.
Okay, talk to
How
me.
in the world do you sell something and then that person doesn't possess it? So it's not illegal for me to sell you a vape pen, but as soon as I sell it to you, you now possess it. And so that's illegal?
Yeah, so it is now illegal to sell, so you can't sell
it's
it.
now illegal. Well,
but
okay, you
not
can't sell it,
possess
but you can
it.
have it.
Yes.
So how do I get it if you don't
can-
sell? See, I told you it's a
So
total conundrum.
And I think that's, it's interesting. This is, to me, it's been very interesting to watch because we know Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has made this one of his top priorities. He's insisting that the reason he wants to ban these THC products is because he feels like we need to keep Texans safe, and his main argument is that it's difficult nearly impossible to properly regulate. I believe we have more than 8,000 retailers, and it's just expanding. I mean, it is growing.
Well, they probably sell beer next door, and we regulate that. We can figure this out.
I agree. I do think we can figure this out. I think it's the approach of it's all gone or it's not regulated at all.
Well, I'll tell you, I did one of the first stories in my career here in Houston back in the early 90s when I worked for Channel 13 on hemp and the efforts to legalize it.
That's right.
The person that was behind those efforts was a paraplegic. And a lot of paraplegics use THC as well as medicinal marijuana for pain, for relaxation. They have a lot of times restless nerve issues with their legs.
Yeah.
Even though they can't move them, their body still moves them. So I don't know anything really about Governor Abbott and his issues with being a paraplegic, but he seemed to be for this. He sent it back and said, let's rethink this. Now, perhaps he knows other people that are paraplegic that really do rely on this, and it was more of a personal thing for him. But I'm guessing.
And I think he would never come out and actually say that.
No, but, it wouldn't be a bad thing if he did. My mother, when she had dementia, we gave her medicinal marijuana and chocolate.
That's right.
And she loved chocolate, but she had no appetite.
And I think it's important to know what you're talking about. The consumable hemp industry, it really took off in 2019 right here in Texas. And that was one of the reasons, is because Texas Legislature really opened the door to it because they wanted to align the state law with federal law, which had legalized hemp. So it's one of those things where it's very interesting. We came to zero place with that. I think a lot of people were watching that bill specific.
A lot of huffing and puffing over this one that didn't really matter too much.
But again, what are your thoughts? Give us a call, 713-440-8870, or email us, talk@hellohouston.org.
Okay, the Republicans are angry at the Democrats for breaking quorum.
Shocker.
And a lot of them, when they broke quorum, were supported financially through other avenues. I'm not going to go into what because I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But some people have suggested different ways they were getting. I mean, they were in Chicago for a couple of weeks. That's not cheap. And they paid what, $7,200 a year or something. I mean, it's infinitesimal. So the Republicans sponsored HB 18, which bans lawmakers from raising funds while participating in a quorum break. It would fine members up to $5,000 for each donation accepted while they're, I presume, on this break. And it would also fine donors $5,000 for each contribution you made to them. So if you made a $100 contribution, I guess you could be fined $5,000. So lawmakers who are not themselves breaking quorum would still be allowed to raise funds during a quorum break. So blah, blah, blah. The thing is, they laid the bill out in committee and acknowledged that as far as courts were concerned, monetary contributions are a form of political speech. That's what the Democrats were saying. And John Busey, who's a Democrat from Austin, also made the argument that the bill was more about intimidating political opposition and stopping dissent than trying to penalize quorum breakers. So I have a tendency to believe that. The responses from Republicans is that it's exclusively designed to punish behavior that encourages lawmakers to leave the legislature in a halt, right? And so it's strictly punishment. And it could go for anyone, Republicans or Democrats.
And that's what's very interesting. We want to know what your thoughts are on House Bill 18. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. You know, I think that Republicans might someday come to regret this law.
Well,
if Democrats ever return to the majority in the legislature,
yep.
They shot themselves in the foot. And so it is very presumptuous to make this law and to go forward with it because, again, as we know, the world turns and we have elections and people vote and this could definitely come back to bite the Republicans.
Well, I can tell you from experience, I was an intern on Capitol Hill for my Republican Congressman, John Buchanan, back in 1980, and the Democrats were still in power under Jimmy Carter. And when you are not in power, it's miserable. I mean, I've been there. And of course, what happened? The Republicans won with Reagan, and then the Democrats were not in power any longer until Clinton came along. So these decades-long power, not power that happened, they do come around to bite you. So I think that they might regret this one day for sure.
And I also look at this and I think, is this really a solution? Is this truly a solution, what happened? How could we have really bridge the gap here? And I think when we look at what we know as we were following the first legislative session and the first special session and the second special session, there was a lot of conversation around commissions, redistricting commissions. And so I don't think this is necessarily a solution. Again, this is putting any party in the minority or in the majority it's just compromising, I think.
I agree with you completely. What do you think? You can call us or text us, 713-440-8870. Do you know Fritz Goldman? He's one of our YouTube people.
So familiar.
He sent this note to you. He says, Celeste, I hope you talked up in Austin. The great KUHF is doing with local program in video format. So they've gone video.
I was in Salt Lake City. I was not in Austin at the Public Media Content Collaborative. Of course, I talked about how the amazing things that we're doing here at Hello Houston and Houston Public Media. Thanks. And I know Alex also asked me what I ate in Austin, but Salt Lake City, it was really beautiful.
It's gorgeous. I love the topography of the whole Rocky Mountain chain, right on down the Sangre de Cristo Mountains.
I went running. I ran to the state capitol, and that was very beautiful.
It's a beautiful capital. You know, they have more records of family trees in Salt Lake City than anywhere, I think, in the world. It's over 2 billion.
Surprised.
Really, it is. Mormons want to know who are their relatives.
And that's
They're very big on
important to them.
Yes, and so they have tons of records.
Yes.
I'm in them.
Again, 713-440-8870. We do have a call from Vivian from the North Side on our topic, the first topic we spoke about, hemp regulation. Vivian, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Okay, first of all, I want to say that I am so glad that you guys are on because NPR is the only news that I trust.
Thank
you, Vivian.
Yeah. About the marijuana, the THC, I suffer from depression, and the THC helps me stop being such a bitch. So,
well, since you love us, I would never call you the B word.
When I'm depressed, I'm really horrible. And so all of my friends and family are really glad that I'm taking it because I'm nice.
Nice. Well, I think depression is really, really important to help with. It leads to drug use. It leads to suicide. It leads to being ugly to people, aggression that you just can't control. So good for you, Vivian. Thank you for calling.
Thank you for calling.
Us, and thanks for the kudos. All right, David from Kingwood on the quorum break. David, what's on your mind?
Just a quick question, because I'm newer to Texas. I've only been here about 7 years. Have the Republicans, when they were not in control back in the late 80s, ever broken quorum?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
He wants to know if the Republicans have ever broken quorum when they were not in control.
That's a great question.
That is a good question.
That's a great, David. That's a great question. And you know what we're going to do is we're going to get one of our producers to look that up for us so we can make sure that we have an answer for you. Again, 713-440-8870. David, did you have any other comments or questions?
It's just that the whole redistricting thing, I think, was unfounded. I'm originally from New Jersey, and we have kind of an independent commission where 6 Republicans, 6 Democrats are placed on it, and then the state Supreme Court appoints kind of a tiebreaker who's supposed to be independent. And I think that's something that most states should move towards.
Thanks, David. Again, that's something that we talked a lot about. And we've heard quite a few people from New Jersey that have called and told us about this specific redistricting commission. Again, 713-440-8870. You can join the conversation.
We want to hear from you. So let's move on to this. This is my favorite topic.
This is my favorite topic
because
I'm also a millennial. What's that? Yes. Okay. How about a 4-day work week?
That's a millennial talking.
That's a millennial talking. A new survey of 2,000 Americans examining lifestyle factors, attitudes to work, and social life balance found 69% of employed respondents think they could do their job in 32 hours a week. The survey conducted by Talk Research found millennials as the generation most likely to support a 4-day work week. I can get behind this, 75%. With Gen Z slightly less enthused, with 70%, and Gen X similarly compelled, 70%. If Americans were to get their 4-day work week, which is the day they'd like to have off, Friday not dominated with 55% of the votes, followed by Monday at 24%. Are you in favor of a 4-day work week? Give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870.
Well, you want that, don't you? I know I have friends that worked for Shell, and I know that they had that as a standard operating procedure for years.
90-40s or something? Yeah.
They don't do that any longer, I don't think. But I think if you're grandfathered, if you were hired before a certain date, you still have every other Friday off. So, that I think that's I think this
But you had a longer day.
10-hour day.
Yes, so you had a longer day.
Did you?
I think right. I think it sounds really great in theory, but I find that I would probably end up with the same. I would maybe become overwhelmed with the fact that I need to get everything done in 4 days versus.
But you know what? Employers who have adopted this have said that they actually have a happier group of people working for them and a harder group of workers because they have that 4-day work week. It's very incentivizing to bring people on staff as well as to retain them.
Listen,
I get it.
I get it.
If we could do it, we'd probably do it.
I get it. I would be for it. Frank, I'd be for it. What about you?
Well, you're still working now, sweetheart.
I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere. So, I could get behind it, but I'm not complaining. Yeah.
All right, Colette is with us from Spring on the Texas Legislature. Hi, Colette. Welcome to Hello Houston.
Hey, thank you for having me.
What's on your mind?
So 2 really quick things. First is just, 800 rules passed. Don't really know what any of them really accomplished. And just wanted to go back to what Celeste said about the new laws for the quorum. It doesn't accomplish anything again. And if anything, to me, it means people are scared to actually make a relevant law that will make any effect.
Agreed. Does nothing. Celeste is right.
Right. When we look at these, elected officials and they go to the Capitol, and it's not just within our state, it's a national issue. We expect people to come and want to work for the people that vote them in office. Yep. And we're just going to find ourselves in another situation where there's frustration is going to continue and they're not really looking for solutions to make things better. It's just what makes their party look like they are doing better, but they're not.
Well, this could, again, bite the Republicans in the butt. If the Democrats will get out and all vote, then the redistricting won't matter. Mm-hmm. But you got to vote. You got to vote. All right, let's go to Eric from the north side on the hemp issue. Hi, Eric. Welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, how y'all doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
So, I was driving home and y'all started listening to the broadcast.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
I had a coworker who is a pilot. Well, I should say was a pilot. He was an older man, so he's getting some CBD oil to rub on his joints, because he's achy, as those things happen. But it was contaminated with THC, so when he got his medical, he failed his medical test, and he lost his pilot's license as a result.
Wow.
Interesting.
So there is no regulation and no standards for THC-free products and CBD oils and these sorts of things. And the FAA, I know, is dealing with, I heard it was thousands of cases a year of guys that are taking, girls, I'm sure, that are taking CBD products that are contaminated with THC. Until they get that fixed, all this other legislation is not going to matter. They have to get that regulated and some sort of approved testing agency and standard put into place.
Eric, that's an excellent point.
Yeah, it's another can of worms to have to open on this.
That is absolutely an excellent point. And I think that as we look to this, there are so many questions about this. Again, Eric, thank you for giving us a call and bringing up that point. And let's go to Aliha on the 4-day work week. Aliha, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, I'm so excited. My name's Elijah.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having me on. I think that we should definitely have a 4-day work week. I am a millennial. I'm 30 on the dot, 30 and a half. And I was going to say, I think the thing that sucks is that if they're going to implement it, that everyone should get to choose what work day they're off. Because imagine, the whole world's off on Friday, right? When the whole world's off on Saturday, it's busy. And so if you're wanting a day off or not a day off, but, a day that you can – that is yours, an extra day, you should be able to choose so that you're not necessarily in crowds, like if you need to go to the doctor or you need to take care of some administrative stuff or you need to be able to call, I don't know, like a benefit service or something like that.
Elijah,
I'm with you.
I love that you're a millennial and your me day consists of going to the doctor and doing administrative things.
Oh, well.
You're speaking my language, friend.
So
I think that's one of those things where we're going to continue to talk about these topics. We know that we still have some more calls coming through. Again, thank you for joining us on Hello Houston.
You know what the best news of the day is?
Tell me.
Nobody won the Powerball.
Nobody won the Powerball.
$1.7 billion for Saturday night. I got just the Powerball. It was 22. I got just that.
Well, again, you can check out our YouTube page. There's a lot of conversation. Rick is very excited about the Powerball. But we have work to do. Coming up on Hello Houston with Rick Sharga, CEO of CJ Patrick Company, about foreclosures being on the rise right here in Houston and around the country. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
With federal support gone, Houston Public Media needs a stronger foundation for the future. The Houston Public Media Resiliency Fund is our response to ensure this service remains strong, stable, and community-powered. Your gift today helps us stay on the air tomorrow and the day after that. Give now to the Resiliency Fund at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Marketplace tonight at 6:30.
Should ancient vehicles be sold, donated, recycled?
Would you like to buy my minivan?
I would not like to buy your minivan.
And what happens to all the metal and hazardous fluids? Our reporter parts with the family Vanny, who's 20 years old with 183,000 miles and...
Wasps are in one.
It has wasps. The fate of Vanny on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
You can listen today at 3 o'clock.
Houston Matters wants to hear from you about story or guest ideas for future programs, or pet care or gardening questions you'd like us to tackle when those subjects come up each month on the show. Or maybe you have suggestions for how we can improve the program and provide a better public service. Reach out anytime at talk@houstonmatters.org. I'm Craig Cohen. Join us for the next Houston Matters, weekday mornings at 9 here on News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from St. Luke's Health and the St. Luke's Foundation, supporting clinical excellence, compassionate care, and a healthier future for all. More at supportstlukes.org. Support comes from Moody Center for the Arts, opening their fall 2025 exhibition Biomorph on September 5th from 6 to 8 p.m. 7 international artists explore the intersection of biology, society, and technology. Details at moody.rice.edu.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Celestia Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
You know, I don't know if you saw this, Celeste. If you want to get into the luxury home market, you got to have at least $1 million.
Not shocked.
I mean, it's how, and millennials like yourself are a little angry at people my age because we're the ones that bought homes for $300,000 and now we want $1 million for them.
And you bought 2 or 3 of them.
And how do younger people even get there?
Exactly.
So it's not surprising that there's a really concerning trend, and that is simply that foreclosures are on the rise, not only in Houston but across the nation. There's a company called Atom, ATTOM, and I looked at this. They have more data than Carter has liver pills. Let me tell you, they're all about the data, the foreclosure market. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of numbers here, but we have a special guest, Rick Sharga. He's going to talk to us about the numbers as he sees them and what this means. Rick, you had a key role at Atom, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, at ATTOM. And I tried to find out how to pronounce it. I couldn't. So you tell me. But you're now the CEO of C.J. Patrick Company. So give us some insight on this, the data that is out there and the perspective from someone who's in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, you were pronouncing it correctly. It's Atom, just like TOM would be. So it was a little play on that. And yeah, I've had 2 tours of duty with the company over the years, and actually created the foreclosure report that you're reading way back before the Great Recession hit, and we had the national foreclosure crisis. I think the good news coming out of all of this is that even though foreclosure activity is going up on a year-over-year basis, we're still way below where we were prior to the pandemic. So a lot of the government programs that were put in place to keep foreclosure activity relatively low, a lot of the work that the mortgage servicing industry is doing with distressed borrowers to try and help them avoid a foreclosure continue to work. But in the last month in particular, we did see a pretty significant spike in foreclosure notices issued in the Houston metro area. And there's there could be a variety of reasons for that that we can certainly talk about, but it's not time to panic, I guess, is the most important takeaway from all of this.
Hey Rick, let me ask you this, because the statistics are that Texas has 17,680 foreclosures this year, is what I'm reading, and 2,207 bank repossessions. Pardon my ignorance. What is the difference between a foreclosure and a repossession?
Now, foreclosure as a word, we should probably ban from the English language because it has about 98 different meanings, and it does get confusing. So when a borrower misses 3 to 4 consecutive monthly payments, they technically go into default on their mortgage and are issued a notice that the lender is executing a foreclosure proceeding against them. so that if they don't catch up on their payments, the lender is going to try and sell the property at a public auction in order to make up or to reclaim the money it's loaned the borrower. And if they don't manage to sell the property at the auction, they'll repossess the property. It becomes a bank repossession. And that's the smaller of the numbers you talked about. We haven't seen a lot of those in the last few years. A lot of borrowers who are, even though they're in foreclosure, have a lot of equity in their properties. You guys were just talking about that. Somebody bought a house for $300,000 and it's now worth $1 million. And they would lose all of that equity at a foreclosure sale. So what's happening in a lot of cases, and this is happening in Texas as well, is somebody gets that first foreclosure notice telling them that a sale has been scheduled. And in order to protect their equity, they'll sell the property, make up whatever past due amounts were due to the bank, and then collect the rest of the equity so they can at least walk away with some money in their pocket.
Why could they not do that back when the crisis of 2008 was occurring?
That's a great question. And the reason is that almost everybody in foreclosure back then was underwater on their loan. They owed more to the bank than the property was worth. And keep in mind, in between 2008 and 2010, I'm going to bore you with data here, property values across the country dropped between 40 and 50%. So if you bought a house at the beginning of this cycle, and it was, say, a $500,000 house, suddenly it was only worth $250,000 and you had a $400,000 loan. So in a lot of cases back then, it was smarter for that homeowner just to stay put and kind of wait for the foreclosure to take place, and at least not have to pay for their monthly housing costs while that was going on.
But Rick, earlier you mentioned how you did see a spike in the Houston area, and you said that there were some reasons. Can you walk us through some of those reasons and how you essentially are assessing the risk, how you determined these risk determinations?
Yeah, so Adam actually goes out and collects these public records that are posted every month. They're posted at the courthouse, and they report on those monthly and quarterly and annually. It's a pretty big undertaking. Houston, we saw the numbers jump from about 700 initial foreclosure notices to about 1,400 month over month. And normally that might be a cause for alarm, but in Houston, for some reason, every now and then that happens. So 2 months ago, we saw about 1,000 foreclosure notices. The following month, we only saw about 700, and now he jumped up to 1,400. I wouldn't be surprised if that number dips down again next month, because sometimes there's just delays in these records. The reasons you could be seeing more foreclosures, not just in Houston, but in Texas, are kind of hidden costs of home ownership. And this will be no surprise to either of you, but insurance premiums for homeowners have gone just stratospheric. You're talking about rates that have doubled, tripled in the last couple of years. Imagine now you're a homeowner who stretched as far as you could to be able to afford to buy a house. It's just barely within your budget. And suddenly your monthly insurance bill is $300 more than it was a year ago. You might not be able to handle that extra $300. And your only recourse, if you can't sell the house, ultimately is to start missing those home payments. As property values went way up in Texas over the last few years, property taxes also went up. So, again, those borrowers who took out a 30-year fixed rate loan for their mortgage and thought they had locked into a monthly payment that was going to be consistent for the next 30 years have had sticker shock, both in terms of property taxes going up very significantly and insurance rates just going through the roof. So that could be causing some fallout from folks in Texas and in Houston in particular. And then you have those extreme weather events too.
Right.
And once the dust all settles, there are also some times where people just can't afford to rebuild and wind up letting the property go back to the banks.
Hey, Rick, if you're in foreclosure, isn't there someone, the lender, a bank, a financial advisor, you can turn to and get your loan restructured and say, look, help me be able to make my payment, afford the insurance, afford the property taxes, and still be able to feed my family? I don't want to encourage people to just walk away or just sell when there is help out there, isn't there?
There is. The challenge, of course, is that once you started missing payments, your credit score gets slaughtered, which makes it just extravagantly more difficult to do a refinance. However, the thing that people need to do and that they always don't do is they need to get in touch with their mortgage servicer. That's the company that sends them their bill every month. And that's the company that has programs from the FHA, from Fannie Mae, from Freddie Mac, from the Veterans Administration, that are all aimed at helping them, kind of recast that loan the way you just talked about, get caught up on their past due payments over time, and hopefully restructure the loan into a payment they can make, or at least get them some time so they have a runway so they know what they're dealing with and they don't suddenly find themselves out on the street. So very first thing you need to do is contact your mortgage servicer to find out what loan modification options they have, what loss mitigation options that they can provide you, because they all have them. And most of the mortgage servicers have teams that are dedicated to do that. You can also check out the HUD website, the Government Housing Authority. They have credit counselors that they basically certify across the country who can work with distressed borrowers and try and help them figure out if there's a way out of their trouble.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with Rick Sharga about foreclosures being on the rise right here in Houston and around the country. If you would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870.
So Denise Ehrlich, the wine goddess, says it's the property taxes, which, of course, they continue sort of to go up. They're trying to bring them down. Rick, I want to share this story. When I moved from Mississippi to Texas in 1989, I had a house, went to closing, and the closing agent said, someone bought back taxes on your property that weren't paid 2 or 3 years ago. And had you not come in and sold this house and closed on it, they paid those back taxes. They would have owned your house. So I really barely missed it. So I guess the lesson there is don't not pay your property taxes. Can that still happen? And can that happen in Texas? Can somebody come back and pay your old property taxes and own your house over a certain period of time if you fail to do so?
It's possible. It happens very rarely. Generally, the only taxes that, if you don't pay, can cost you your house are taxes to the IRS. They can put a lien on your home and take it without any issues at all. And there are investors who will look at these government foreclosures and go buy these houses for pennies on the dollar. So yeah, taxes are important. Property taxes, typically you have to miss a whole lot of property taxes before the state wants to get involved. And they will put a lien on the property so that the next buyer, if those property taxes haven't been resolved, will also be responsible for cleaning those up at closing. But yeah, you do need to pay your taxes. If you don't pay your taxes, theoretically, the state could come in and foreclose on your house.
Yeah, I think you could go 5 years in Texas and not pay your property taxes. They go up every year. You basically, when you go to sell the house, they're going to take them. So
yes, they will.
Yeah, but a lot of people, especially investors, they won't pay them. They'll wait until they sell the property, and then they'll pay them all at once. So a
lot of investors are only holding the properties for very short periods of time. So you're probably right about that. If you're somebody who's buying a house, fixing it up, and then flipping it as a resale property, you're probably holding it for 6 months or less. It wouldn't surprise me if some of those people are just kind of biding their time and not paying the taxes and figure it'll go in the transaction. But that's also not a really smart move for investors because they could get themselves in some trouble too.
Yeah. Rick, really quickly, you all just released the latest housing risk report. And one of the things that came out of this report was Southern states dominate list of riskiest U.S. housing market counties in Q2 for this year. What can you briefly tell us about that? What people should know about this?
Basically, that report kind of determines if the economy slows down, if there's some sort of shock to the system, which markets are likely to be hit the hardest. And yeah, the southern region was one of the areas for that. We're seeing slowdowns in job growth. We're seeing slowdowns in population migration. We're seeing a slight uptick in unemployment, for example, in the Houston area.
Yes.
Unemployment rates running about 0.5% higher than it is nationally. So you factor all of those things in, including things like increasing numbers of foreclosures, excuse me, and that's how Adam determines where the riskiest markets are. Doesn't mean the market is at imminent risk. It means that if there is something that happens to the local economy, those markets are probably the ones that will be the hardest hit.
And when you look at Houston, Harris County specifically, you talk about how it's unique. And we often hear that a lot about Houston, in that we saw the rise, but you were expecting another dip. What could cause that dip that you think could potentially happen?
With Houston, a lot of it still comes down to energy, and that constitutes a huge part of the local economy. The current administration, excuse me, in Washington, seems very pro-energy. But if anything were to happen that, for example, energy prices plummeted because maybe of an oversupply suddenly of oil or gas, anything that could hit the energy market in a negative way is something that would definitely have a negative effect on the Houston area.
All right. Thank you so much.
Rick is the CEO of CJ Patrick Company. Rick, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, we'll talk about providing healthy meals for kids with leaders at Recipe for Success. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Federal funding for public media has been cut. In response, we're creating Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund. Donations made toward the fund will directly counter the loss of the $2.2 million in federal funds that were cut annually and strengthen our station's foundation to provide our services into the future. Contributing to this fund is easy and quick and makes all the difference to our station. Help build the Resiliency Fund now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Podcast platforms.
Federal funding for public media and our station has been cut, and we need your support to continue serving this community.
That's why we've created the Houston Public Media Resiliency Fund to protect fact-based journalism and trusted local programming from future uncertainty.
The purpose of the Resiliency Fund is to bridge the gap that was left by the funding cuts, which make up $2.2 million each year in our budget.
Make your gift now to the Resiliency Fund at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
It took 7 years, but Tom Tursich tells us what it was like to walk around the world.
Get a taste of what life is like there, and you want a bit of it, but you only have one life, so you got to keep moving.
While Greta Rebus prefers looking for hot springs,
where we can slow down, where we can feel what our body feels like in different temperatures and different minerals.
Join us for the next Travel with Rick Steves.
You can hear it Saturday morning at 6 o'clock.
Houston Public Media is licensed to the University of Houston system, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. Through research and innovation, Baylor continues to redefine what's possible in healthcare and medical discovery.
And now back to Hello Houston. To get your comment in on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Celeste Diaz-Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
The Recipe for Success Foundation is a Houston area nonprofit dedicated to combating childhood obesity. Launched in 2005, the organization uses educational programs and community involvement to help change how children understand, appreciate, and eat their food. The Recipe for Success Foundation's Back to School First Saturday Market will take place this Saturday, September 6th at Hope Farms in Houston. And joining us now to tell us more is the founder and CEO of the Recipe for Success Foundation, Gracie Cavnar, and Ashley Tamayo, the Director of Agriculture and Education. Gracie, Ashley, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And if you have any questions, you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870.
Gracie, can you hear us?
We can. I can. And it's so great to be on. Thanks so much for having us.
It's lovely to see you. Tell me, how old is this Recipe for Success Foundation, and how does it all operate? I don't know much about it.
Sometimes I think, where has the time gone? But I started Recipe for Success Foundation 20 years ago.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's a little bit like raising a child, right?
Yes.
20 years we've been doing this.
And so what is your mission?
The whole idea, so we were alarmed by the epidemic of childhood obesity that was sort of raising its head in the mid-90s. And I did a lot of research to try to figure out what were the causes and what could we do about it, right, as private citizens. So much research had been done and a lot of great ideas the researchers came up with, but there was no protocol for implementation. And so I decided to put research into action by implementing some programs that resonated with me personally. I thought, well, if I'm going to give up my life to start a nonprofit, we might as well be doing something I enjoy. So I came across data that said children who gardened were inspired to eat healthier, and certainly children and anyone who knows how to cook made healthier eating decisions. And I love to do both of those things. And so we created a program called Seed to Plate Nutrition Education that ties it all together for kiddos. And we designed it to deliver during the school day at school.
Gracie,
and it has been a powerful tool.
I've got to tell you, I absolutely love this. I am currently the garden chair at my daughter's school for their gardens.
Yay.
And so, and I've talked about it a lot on Hello Houston, but I personally have seen the impact when you go out there with young children and they plant the seeds and they go through the process. Ashley, talk to us about your program and the curriculum about, actually being there in a garden.
Yeah, so I joined Recipe for Success Foundation in 2022, and at the time, programming had kind of taken a pause in schools because of COVID, all of this stuff. So, we're revamping, but I've been really fortunate to be able to see Seed to Plate in action at Hope Farms.
Yes.
And so it's, this beautiful urban farm in Sunnyside, and we're able to, host kids out at the farm for field trips and workshops, classes, summer camps, and really see the program in its full effect with the kids experiencing their food literally from seed to plate. They're out there, with the insects and the seeds and the soil, and then
the
taking
dirt.
Yes, taking it into the kitchen and preparing something that they want to eat, that they're connected to, and it makes a big difference.
Oh, totally. And Gracie, since you've launched this incredible program, talk to us about the evolution of it, given the fact that you mentioned COVID and you talked about, has there been a change in the way children look at their food today?
Well, here's the thing. We were going great guns before COVID, and we're in schools across the country because you understand the gardening piece of it, but then giving children the life skills to prepare their own food with the sensibilities of a chef. That's where our program really delivers the power and changes literally habits and attitudes. And things were just steaming along and hundreds of schools implementing the program. And then boom, COVID shut the door.
Yep.
Because everything in schools stopped, right? Mm-hmm. Now, it just so happened that at the same time, we had finally realized our vision of creating an urban farm in Houston. That was always kind of part of the plan. And we had a farm, and guess what? During COVID, you could spend time outside. So we redirected our personal energy and all of our volunteers and boards' energy to getting that farm established. And the idea of the farm originally, and still, is to grow healthy produce in the middle of a neighborhood, serve as a gathering place to inspire people to eat healthy and embrace healthy food.
Is this Hope Farms?
And gardening.
Hope Farms that you're talking about?
It is just outside the South Loop at the corner of Airport and Sunnyside. Like if you're going the back way to Hobby down 288, you go right by it.
Perfect. Okay,
and
so I want to ask you.
In the middle of the city.
I want to ask you about Hope Farms because there's this big event going on Saturday, the Back to School First Saturday Market. So, one of you talk to me about that. How can people participate, and what will people that go expect to find out?
Yeah, it's a fun time out at the farm, and Chef Kirby from Vibrant will be there. That's one of the really attractive parts about our first Saturday market is that the chefs here in Houston really embrace our work and support us. They're really fun to work with, and they come out and teach these cooking classes to adults and kids. And so Chef Kirby will be there teaching, some healthy back-to-school tips and tricks for parents and caregivers, and also inspire the kids to get involved with that process so that they're making those choices on their own and helping, mom and dad prepare their lunch.
And what time does this happen?
So the market is open from 9 to 2 on every first Saturday, and we're also going to be having some gardening workshops and, farm tours. I have a fun farm scavenger hunt for the kiddos, and also the store is open, so, guests can come in and purchase.
Anyone can come?
Yeah, anybody can come. You do have to register for the cooking class in advance, so I encourage anyone who's interested to do that early, sign up for our newsletter, get involved, visit the website.
Well, what is the website?
HopeFarmsHTX.org.
Okay.
Yeah, and sign up early because we do sell out, and it's a really, really beneficial thing for both parents and kids to experience that farm to table experience there.
What are some of the produce that will be harvested and sold? What's in season right now?
Yeah, so we have gangbusters of eggplant right now.
Yeah,
lots to do with it. No, we have really wonderful varieties. One of my favorites, especially for the kids, are these little fairy tale eggplants. They're really tender, and I can even eat them fresh. So, we have
moussaka.
lots of baba ganoush going on in the kitchen. But yeah, we have okra and beans. Our summer crops are doing pretty well. So
this is called First Saturday. Do you do this for every first Saturday of the month, or do you do something every Saturday? What's the schedule?
Yeah, so the first Saturday of the month, we have expanded offerings with the cooking classes, gardening workshops, and arts and crafts, entertainment stuff. But also every Saturday of the month, we're open from 9 to 1, where anyone can come in and shop. Fresh, local, organic, grown by wonderful people, I might say.
When you're working with the students and the kids that come and parents, is there something that surprises you or something that excites you about that?
Yeah. I'm a mom too, and my career path started in early childhood education, and noticing the impact that nutrition has on a child's overall development and well-being, their happiness, even teenagers, social emotional development really has a lot to do with nutrition. And so I get really inspired when I see parents taking the initiative to get their kids out there and involved. I'm also really passionate about, natural resource conservation and connecting kids with nature and getting them outside. We say all the time, we are here to promote more green time, less screen time. And so just getting the kids out at the farm is the first step at having them connected to all the things that we need for our communities to grow healthy food.
Yeah, Gracie, real quick. So there's been a big push in this country for healthier eating, and some of these programs, that we're seeing. Finally. So are you playing into that movement in the country?
We are. The timing is perfect for our efforts to jumpstart our return to the schools. And in fact, for our 20th anniversary, we are pushing a 20 for 26, a campaign to fund new seed to plate programming in 20 Houston area elementary schools. We are doing a lot of training for food educators at the farm, working with districts and schools to open the doors. And many of them, as you've just talked about, have the garden education. Our piece is coming in beside that to align that with the culinary education and building these strong roadblocks to a healthy life. So that's 100% of our focus this year is basically the relaunch of our extraordinary award-winning seed-to-plate nutrition education
Yay.
in the schools.
That's wonderful.
At the same time, you can come out to the farm and enjoy it too. But
Thank you. Hey, I dug up my first potato and ate it that night when I was 7. I remember it to this day.
There you go.
Gracie Cavnar is the founder and CEO of the Recipe for Success Foundation. Ashley Tamayo is the Recipe for Success Foundation's Director of Agriculture and Education. This Saturday, you can head to the Hope Farms Market. Thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. Coming up, we'll continue diving into today's top stories. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from CertaPro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at CertaPro.com.
We have a nice sunny day today. We'll get up to the mid-90s, around 95 degrees. Currently, it's 87. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we'll speak with Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo, who joins us to discuss the county budget and more. I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. We'll also hear from University of Houston Energy Fellow Ed Hers. He'll discuss CenterPoint's new resiliency plan and the issues he has with it.
Plus, we'll also discuss this weekend's International Women's Festival with the founder Adrianna Clasen and DJ Caribbeats, who will be performing at the event.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text us, 713-440-8870, or email us, talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org and clicking that big orange banner.
Hello Houston continues right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is encountering bipartisan pushback from the Senate Finance Committee this afternoon over his vaccine skepticism and availability of COVID vaccines. One of the most combative exchanges was between him and Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren.
You just changed the classification of the COVID vaccine.
I'm not taking them away from people, Senator.
It takes it away if you can't get it from your pharmacist.
Well, most Americans are going to be able to get it from their pharmacy for free. Most Americans will be able to get it from their pharmacy for free.
The question is, everyone who wants it, that was your promise.
No, I didn't. I never promised that I was going to recommend products with which there is no indication.
Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, who was crucial in Kennedy's confirmation, also challenged Kennedy over his decision to cancel contracts related to COVID vaccines and high-profile departures from the CDC. Two former top officials at the National Institutes of Health have filed a whistleblower complaint charging the administration retaliated against them for resisting attempts to undermine vaccines and other scientific research. Here's NPR's Rob Stein.
The former director of the NIH's National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Jean Marazzo, filed the complaint along with the former director of the NIH's Fogarty International Center, Dr. Kathleen Nuziel. In the filing with the Independent Office of Special Counsel, the pair charged the Trump administration illegally retaliated against them for pushing back against the cancellation of critical research, politicizing scientific studies, and taking hostile moves against vaccines. In a statement, HHS spokesman Andrew Nixon defended the administration's actions. Rob Stein, NPR News.
Campbell says new tariffs are accounting for a growing share of its costs. expecting to offset them in part by raising prices. NPR's Alina Selyukh reports the food giant is particularly affected by President Trump's tariffs on the steel and aluminum needed to make cans for soups.
Campbell says tariffs are expected to account for about 4% of its cost of goods sold over the next fiscal year. That's hundreds of millions of dollars in costs. The company says it faces tariffs on various products. One is Rayo's pasta sauce, which relies on imports from Italy. And the big one is steel used for soup cans. President Trump has added a new 50% tariff on steel, and Campbell's executives say there's simply not a way to source the needed amount of steel in the United States, so they have to import this key raw material. The company expects to cover these new costs in part by negotiating with suppliers, improving productivity, finding other cost savings, but also, quote, surgical and responsible price increases. Alina Selyukh, NPR News.
From Washington, this is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Jack Williams. 2 people are dead in Stafford after a standoff with police. The incident began last night when a man told police that his son killed someone at a home near the Sam Houston Tollway. Lieutenant Lucio Lopez with the Stafford Police Department says responding officers were met with gunfire.
Officers made contact at the front door at the residence, at which time the suspect opened fire on officers, striking one of our officers one time. The officer was not injured. It was stopped by his radio, which is held on the front of his vest.
The standoff lasted several hours with multiple shots fired from inside the home. Police eventually entered the home and found the suspected shooter dead from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. The city of Houston isn't financially prepared for severe storms. That's according to Controller Chris Hollins, the city's chief financial officer. News 88.7's Dominic Anthony Walsh reports some city officials want to raise property taxes to put the city on a stronger financial footing.
Chronic budget deficits, a lackluster rainy day savings fund, and a voter-imposed cap on property tax revenue are among the obstacles to a resilient financial position, according to the Comptroller's office. Houston's property tax rate has fallen more than 12% over the past decade due to the cap, shaving hundreds of millions of dollars off the city's revenue each year.
We have to find a way to generate more revenue.
Councilmember Sally Alcorn chairs the Budget Committee.
And we are going to have to make an unpopular decisions in order to give the residents of this city the services they deserve.
Without more revenue, the city faces a challenge in expanding its rainy day savings fund, which currently sits at $14 million out of a $20 million goal. I'm Dominic Anthony Walsh, News 88.7.
And you can find more on these stories on our website, HoustonPublicMedia.org. In sports, the Astros conclude their series with the Yankees tonight at Daikin Park. Houston holds a 4-game lead in the American League West after last night's win against the Yankees. Sunny and hot the rest of the day, the high around 95, mostly clear tonight, the low 77, more warm weather tomorrow, the high of around 95. 88 at the University of Houston. I'm Jack Williams, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher's dedicated team of specialists provide resources on investing, retirement income, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to the second hour of Hello Houston. We had a lot of engagement.
Yes.
In that first hour.
I thought it was very interesting.
It was extremely interesting. We talked a little bit about some of the major headlines, seeing the fact that the state of Texas decided there is nothing going to happen in regard to hemp.
Yeah. So, and as you mentioned, 8,000 retailers.
Yeah.
I still don't understand how it's illegal to sell it, but legal to possess it.
I think it's the vape.
How am I going to get it?
It's the vape itself. And then we also had quite a few calls in regards to the 4-day work week. Millennials are very much behind it.
Well, look, old folks are okay with it too. So don't think for a minute this is a generational idea. We're actually the ones that came up with it.
That's true. But we want to thank you.
That's true, but that's true.
We are the ones that will actually execute on it. Actually, no, I don't know. But we want to thank you for joining us, whether you're tuning in on 88.7 or you're joining us on YouTube. We have another packed second hour coming up on Hello Houston. U of H Energy fellow Ed Hurst has some issues with CenterPoint's new resiliency plan, and he's going to join us to tell us all about it. But first, Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo joins us now to discuss the latest issues impacting Harris County. Judge Hidalgo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Harris County is facing a $200 million budget deficit going into the fiscal year 26. Can you just briefly tell us what happened?
Yeah, so first I want to clarify that a $200 million deficit is not normal. We talk about it and that maybe makes us feel that it's standard practice, but it's not. And how did we get here? So over the past year, different departments have come to Commissioner's Court to request additional funding. And the budget director has said, we cannot afford that because we have revenue constraints due to state law. Everybody knows they've been coming after us, so they're really trying to get us to suffer as county government. So anyway, even though he has said that we couldn't afford those expenses, 3 of my colleagues have consistently voted for those expenses. So that's how we ended up with about $100 million of deficit. But then later on in the year, a couple months ago, a proposal was raised right after the city did the same thing to raise the salaries of law enforcement. And it was brought up suddenly by one of my colleagues on Commissioner's Court that day. And it received support from 2 colleagues. The cost of that is $100 million. And so that's another $100 million. So that's $200 million total that we're in deficit. That's going to lead to cuts. And actually, this is not done. There's actually a possible solution still to this.
Law enforcement.
Judge Lina Hidalgo, I want to go back to, under Texas law, counties cannot raise property taxes revenue beyond 3.5% year over year without voter approval. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you have done to try to allow voters to decide on that? Because that is technically Texas law.
Right, exactly. So because we have such constraints, and just know, before I came into office, the county would routinely grow its revenue by more than 3.5% under Republican leadership. So we're being asked to do something that was never requested before. And in fact, our tax rate has been consistently lower than it ever was under my predecessors. That said, so, okay, we're facing this $200 million unforced deficit. So math is zero-sum. Budgets are zero-sum. Either we cut $200 million worth of services, or we raise more revenue by asking the taxpayers for more revenue. And so when this $100 million proposal came up, 2 of us on Commissioner's Court said, why don't we ask the voters if they would like to pay for this law enforcement raise? Odds are, as they do, everybody believes law enforcement needs to be paid more. And that way, we don't have to cut basic services. But that idea was not entertained to put that on the ballot. Instead, it was a sudden decision to just fund it. And as we were hearing earlier, the city did the same thing. They said that it was going to be fine, that they balanced the budget. And, a couple months later, here we're hearing that they're going to have to implement unpopular decisions. So that's what's coming here in Harris County. Now, to be clear, I support law enforcement and law enforcement raises. I've been proposing them since 2022, but I have not been able to get the support to actually get this implemented. And so it's really a bit of a fantasy a bit of a fantasy situation that's being presented to the voters.
But what is the difference between the public, like the fire marshal's office or the district attorney? When you're looking at those types of departments, you were saying that specifically one of the raises is causing $100,000 to the deficit. How would it look different? Like, what were you proposing that was different from those raises? $100 million.
Right. So what was different is, imagine, let's put it in that dollar amount. So imagine you have, you have $100 worth of expenses, $100 worth of expenses, but your income is only $50. So what are you going to do in order to find that other $50? Either you have to reduce your expenses by $50, or you have to figure out a way to make $50 more. So those are the options here. Is we're either going to have to cut $200 million worth of services. And, folks are saying, well, there's efficiencies, there's this, there's that. But the fact of the matter is they have not proposed a budget that adds up to $200 million that does not reflect cuts to services. Or we have to get more revenue. How do we get more revenue? We go to the voters. You did raise a really good point, which is that what about the fire marshal? What about the district attorney? And I have a question for them. So we have given $100 million worth of raises to the county constables and the sheriff's deputies. But there's other law enforcement. But here's the difference. See, the district attorney and the fire marshal, they don't endorse in elections. And I just want to put that out there.
Judge Hidalgo, we do have a call from Sam from the 3rd Ward. Question or comment, Sam, for Judge Hidalgo?
Yeah, hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello, madam. This is Sam. I'm trying to find out from, property evaluations have gone up. So even though your tax rate is the same, the total money that is generated is higher. That is one point. Plus, as a responsible administration, they need to prioritize what is needed to be done and seek higher efficiencies. In private sector industry, what job was done by 4 people is now being done by 1 person. So similarly, they must prioritize and increase the efficiency. And that's the only way we can go forward and solve this issue of revenue and expenses.
Okay. Well, Sam, I appreciate the comment. It sounds like there's a property tax issue that he has.
Right. Judge Hidalgo, I want to go back to, as you're looking at potential cuts to, as we're looking at departments now being asked to cut back, we had Commissioner of Precinct 4, Leslie Briones, right here on Hello Houston, and she brought these solutions like we're going to make phone lines and we're going to streamline processes. And she started breaking down different ways that the county was going to bring the budget down, but then also not cut from, public safety and health. Why is there not any alignment within that now?
Well, let me first respond to the gentleman. So,
Sure.
He noted that the property taxes are too high. I agree. I don't own a home. I can't afford it. Let's start there. I rent an apartment. So I get it. But our tax rate has not stayed the same. It has actually gone down. It was under the Republican administration that it stayed the same every year. We've lowered it every year. And the reason for that increase is actually the school districts have to continually tax you more and more and more because the state has reduced its commitment to education. They've reduced it a whole lot, increased it just a little bit. So I get it. There are just some basic services that the community needs. So which ones are those? For example, the Forensic Sciences Department, they conduct autopsies. They would have to cut personnel. For example, the Fire Marshal's Office, they inspect schools. They would have to cut. So then I move to the question about efficiencies that both the caller and you are asking me. So, yes, there are always efficiencies to be found. We did a study to look for efficiencies years ago, just like they've done in the city, and we have worked to save and save and save, and that's why we've been able to use lower revenue per person than our predecessors ever did. Mm-hmm. What my colleagues have been saying is that, there are these other efficiencies that we could do that, and the implication is that would add up to $200 million. But see, it doesn't. What you hear from colleagues at any given time is they'll explain one thing. They'll say, well, we could sell this property, and that'll make us some money. And I actually have the amount here. If we sell the West Loop property, we'll get $18 million. Well, yes, but see, $18 million is not $200 million. So we need a proposal of cost savings that are not service cuts that add up to $200 million, and they don't have that because that doesn't exist. And in fact, the cuts that are being proposed, a lot of them are going to limit services, but a lot of the ways that we're increasing the revenue is with one-time funding, which will not be available next year. And the budget director already mentioned this week that we're looking at a similarly huge deficit next year. By then, we will have already sold the West Loop property for $18 million, and we're not going to be able to sell it again.
Judge, I have a question. I know you've probably heard the city of Houston has said that because of the worsening deficit and depleted savings, that we're in trouble in the event of a major disaster. We only have about half of what we should have in a rainy day fund. So where does that leave the county? Because, disasters don't know property lines, and they don't know whether they're hitting the county or the city. So is the county ready if we have a hurricane or a derecho like we had, or some sort of natural disaster?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we're basically slowly headed into a train wreck, and we can still prevent it because one of the proposals for quote-unquote cost savings is to not contribute to our rainy day fund this year. And the argument is, well, the rainy day fund already has $300 million in it. Let me give you the exact amount here. But the fact of the matter is, the rainy day fund only has $185 million. We're waiting for the federal government, the FEMA department under the Trump administration, to send us another $70 million. And of course, we know that FEMA is being gutted. And not only are we not contributing enough, we have to make up for the fact that after the disaster, more likely than not, we will not receive FEMA aid. And so, again, I have not seen a proposal that adds up to $200 million where this lack of contribution is not in the document. I
apologize. Judge Hidalgo, today the department heads are testifying before the commissioner's court. What can you tell us about the budget hearings this week?
I can tell you that one of the arguments that my colleagues who supported this $200 million deficit have been making is, well, we need to get our hands dirty and we need to work with the department heads to try to find additional savings. And I'm afraid that what I expected is happening, in that the department heads are talking about the impacts to their services. Nobody is saying, hey, never mind, we found additional money. So specifically, the fire marshal's office, they inspect schools for alignment with building codes, fire codes. They evaluate their safety in case of emergencies like school shootings. That would be impacted. The district attorney, they would have to cut staff in their mental health desk during jail intake, which identifies individuals with mental health risks so they can be diverted. As I said, the autopsies, the forensic sciences department will not be able to keep up with caseload demands, and they're already experiencing federal cuts. A grant just was terminated by the Department of Justice. Public health, they're going to have to cut staffing for disaster response, administrative staff, and programs that connect our neediest populations to critical services. So not to mention libraries, so on and so forth. So we're seeing that, in fact, there is no magic wand. One of the other comments that have been made is, well, we have vacancy savings because there's a hiring freeze that is part of the proposal to be able to make the $200 million. Well, those are not just positions that we don't need. Those are positions that are usually staffed, but perhaps the person retired or the person decided to switch jobs, or perhaps they had a child and they don't have early childhood education, wink, wink. And so we need to go and fill those positions. And one of my colleagues, I think, who you had on, it was kind of unbelievable. At the at the last Commissioners Court meeting, she said, well, that's not what it means. That's not what a vacancy saving means. And the budget director said, no, that is what it means. And so, it's a really big issue. So my perspective is the community deserves answers on this.
Judge, we have a question for you from Sarah. She's calling in from Montrose. Sarah, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your question for Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo?
Hi, Judge Hidalgo.
We have a question.
Hi, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great, wonderful. Judge Hidalgo, firstly, I just want to say I think you were ahead of your time for Harris County. So thank you for repping the millennial generation in county government. Secondly, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier where you said we have to beef up the rainy day fund ourselves because we can't count on FEMA to be there for us in the event of another disaster. Can you clarify that? Should we actually be concerned that we will receive zero FEMA dollars in the current situation that FEMA's in?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for your question. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen. For example, our public hospital system stands to lose $1 billion, $850 million from federal funding that they don't think is going to come, but they don't know for a fact. What we do know is that the federal government has been cutting staff and limiting what FEMA does in communities. And we also know that after major disasters, FEMA are the ones that have the funding to help people with a place to stay while their home is somewhat livable, to connect folks who are on oxygen with the right facilities, since suddenly they can't be home anymore. So the county just does not have the funding or the infrastructure to be able to do that. So yes, it's a very real concern. And as I said, not only do we need to fill that hole, then the city says they're limited, so we don't have that either. And we're not contributing as much as we normally do to our rainy day fund. So this is no joking matter by any means.
All right, Judge, thank you for that answer. We have another question. This is from John in Southwest Houston. Question or comment for Judge Hidalgo, John?
Yes, Judge, I appreciate your comments. I think one thread that's obvious is that we're lacking federal funding because of these trillions of dollars of tax cuts for the top 1% that the Republican administration and Congress has basically passed. And what troubles me is that no one in the media, certainly not the right-wing media, and unfortunately even the legacy media, are saying, why don't we pass ability to pay taxes on upper incomes of all kinds to balance the budget and fund these essential human services instead of burdening the cities with all the types of problems you have to face?
Well, that's a comment
Thank
and
you,
a
John,
question.
for your comment.
What do you think, Judge?
Look, it's a fair point, and and it's a good idea in terms of we have got to make up for the issues that the federal government is facing. But here's the kicker: is in Harris County, which is led by Democratic county commissioners, we are doing the same thing that the federal government is doing. We are cutting services, important services for people. And that's what, to me, is just unbelievable. And we didn't have to do this. We could have asked the people whether they wanted to see those cuts or whether they wanted to increase pay for law enforcement. And so we owe it to the voters, for my colleagues to choose one of two honest paths. Either they have to take ownership of the cuts to services that they are causing, or they need to go to the voters on the law enforcement pay raises. They can't do it anymore this year because I don't know why they didn't do it this year. So they're going to have to do it next year. But all of this could have been avoided, and to have done this in a context in which the federal government is doing what you've said they are, which is true, is just not right. So I think that the community deserves this information so that they can make their decisions accordingly come election time.
Judge Hidalgo, we do also have a YouTube comment that says, why has cooperation on Harris County Commissioner's Court been so difficult, especially with a supermajority on the court? Isn't part of leadership doing what it takes to work with others? Do you have a response to that, Judge Hidalgo?
Absolutely. I mean, leadership is about negotiating, but I think what we've seen is a lack of desire to compromise. You know, there was this triumvirate formed as soon as the newest colleague joined with the Republican commissioner, and there has been this consistent, bringing of items and just passing without discussion. The $100 million pay increase specifically, we had early childhood programs that have been running successfully for 2 years, that have been evaluated, that we've worked on with the commissioner's offices, and they said that it was a half-baked plan, and so early childhood education needs to end for 20,000 children. But then they bring a $100 million pay increase to law enforcement that it has not been discussed whatsoever, and they just immediately passed it. In fact, I said, and you can go back to the tape, I said, well, can we have some more discussion on this? And they said no, and they just voted. So, I mean, I think you can see what happened before this triumvirate was formed and after, and you can see what changed. See, I was here before that, and I was able to have cooperation. So I'm happy to work through things, but we have to be just really honest with the public and with each other.
Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo. Judge Hidalgo, again, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Yeah,
Judge Hidalgo, we have one more question.
We have one more question, Judge. Are you going to run again for another term?
I'm hoping to talk about that really, really, really soon, like really, really soon. I do want to plug my State of the County is this Friday at noon, and I'll be talking about some really, really important issues. That's tomorrow. So Anyway, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Judge Hidalgo.
Thank you.
Coming up on Hello Houston, U of H Energy fellow Ed Hurst has some issues with CenterPoint's new resiliency plan, and he'll tell us all about it. This is News 88.7.
Hello, I'm Josh Adams, General Manager of Houston Public Media. This station just lost $2.2 million in federal support annually. To keep our station strong, we've launched the Resiliency Fund, powered by community members just like you. Your support will help bridge the funding gap and ensure these programs remain free and accessible to everyone. If public media and this station matter to you, now is the time to act. Support the Resiliency Fund today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
For public media has been cut. Our response? The creation of Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund.
Donations made toward the Resiliency Fund will help bridge the gap from the loss of the $2.2 million annually in federal funds that were cut.
Giving to this fund is easy and quick, and it makes all the difference to our station.
Help build the Resiliency Fund now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Or call 888-909-0887.
On the next Living on Earth, New Jersey wins a major environmental settlement over forever chemicals.
In effect, DuPont used the state of New Jersey as the PFAS toilet for the country.
I'm Paloma Beltran. What it will take to clean up the mess and restore nature. Next time on Living on Earth from PRX.
You can hear that program this Saturday night at 10 o'clock on News 88.7.
Councilmember Edward Pollard stepped up to identify funds to support public media in Houston.
Today, I'm excited to announce a contribution of $50,000 each to two pillars of our public broadcasting landscape, KTSU and Houston Public Media.
Councilman Pollard joins thousands who recognize the value of fact-based, non-biased journalism, high-quality educational content, and emergency alert communications. Learn how you can help at houstonpublicmedia.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Celestia Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
All right, Texas regulators have given the green light to a revised resiliency plan from CenterPoint Energy, allocating approximately $2.7 billion toward fortifying the electric grid over the next 3 years. So that's down. They originally pitched a robust $5.75 billion system-wide resiliency plan. That was trimmed via June settlement to $3.2, and then the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, approved the scaled-down version. So CenterPoint estimates these upgrades, and I don't really understand this, will prevent more than 755 million outage minutes. Mm-hmm. That sounds like it's easy to understand. In reality, I'm not sure what that means, but Ed's going to explain it. But this is going to make the power system, quote, more resilient to extreme weather, which we talked about the lack of funds in the city and the county. The rainy day funds are not there. So we're going to need CenterPoint to do everything they can. So to shed light on what all of this means for both the grid and the people of Houston, we're joined by Ed Hers, Energy Fellow at the University of Houston. Welcome back, Ed. It's good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Frank. Hi, Celeste.
Hi. Okay, so I looked over it, and yes, let's just start from right at the top. What was something that popped up immediately out to you, Ed, that you were like, what? This does not make sense?
Well, CenterPoint had proposed a resiliency plan 3 years ago, and it was quashed by the PUC. It was a couple of $1 billion. And then, of course, we got hit by the derecho and Beryl. They withdrew the plan. They proposed another one. It was deemed not to be sufficient enough. So they went back to the drawing board, proposed the $5.7 billion plan. And now the PUC has come back and cut that by $3+ billion. It's clearly some sort of political agenda at work here. CenterPoint, of course, needs to be compensated for any work that they do. The fact that it took us 3 weeks to recover from Hurricane Beryl, a Category 1, and that was about the same 3 weeks it took us to recover from Hurricane Alicia, a Cat 3, some 40 years ago. And I'll grant you that the grid is different. The population is different. But we've got these challenges of basically not having invested in our infrastructure for the longest time. That's a problem for us. The money that had been proposed by CenterPoint, that's a $5.7 billion plan, had a lot more work involved. Why did the appointees, the governor's appointees on the Public Utility Commission, consider that excessive? Consumers know they get what they pay for. That's pretty straightforward. But the lead commissioner on this is unfortunately just a lawyer. No one who has actually managed a utility has been a lobbyist, a political consultant. And so I'm concerned that not enough is going to be done, that if we do have another extreme weather event with continued outages, extended outages, that CenterPoint, at this point has already made excuse. The governor and the governor's appointees did not allow them to do what they had proposed to make the grid stronger.
Well, I know as a meteorologist, Ed, I'm going to point out that Category 1 is anywhere from 74 miles an hour to 95 miles an hour. And the difference in wind damage to any structure and any power line in that 20-mile range is significant. And I get tired of people saying, well, it was just a 1, because we get into those numbers of just a 1, just a 2. I'm not going to leave unless it's a 3. And you know as well as I do that's the wind force.
Betsy, Camille, Frederick, you name it. I've been through them, and I'm aware of that. The great challenge.
Yeah, a 1 can knock you silly.
Right. The great challenge for CenterPoint was they were only cutting back the vegetation on 20% of their lines year by year. So it not altogether CenterPoint's fault. And the chairman of the Public Utility Commission pointed out that it was, the blame rested with the PUCT. They were, basically playing weather roulette with our grid. They knew and approved the 20% plan.
So when the big winter storm happened in February of 2021.
21.
And the whole state was affected. There was all this talk that we couldn't borrow electricity from anyone else because we were our own electric island, so to speak. We were our own energy source because of deregulation. Has any thought or any effort been put into changing that so that if we get into a situation where we need electricity from another place, we could get it? Or it's
Not
all on
enough
a
thought.
Pardon me?
Not enough thought. And let's keep in mind that CenterPoint is the local distribution utility. CenterPoint failed during the freeze in 2021 because they were unable to rotate the electricity that they did get from ERCOT to places where it needed to go. Dozens died in the CenterPoint area. People who had registered with CenterPoint as critical care patients were left cold and they died. We all remember the photographs in the Houston Chronicle of downtown with its lights on while the neighborhoods froze. That's on CenterPoint. Everyone in the state was aware of that problem, especially following the freeze in 2011, where power was cut to the med center in Dallas and people died. The local utilities knew that they were going to have to be able to manage rotating outages when those came about. And CenterPoint and the board of directors of CenterPoint had plenty of time to get a procedure and protocol in place. They did not do it. Now, the other issue, of course, is ERCOT, which manages the electricity that is generated by the power plants and then distributes it across the state. We're still in a situation where this market rewards scarcity. So, if you think about that, if the price can go from an average of 5 cents a kilowatt hour up to $9 a kilowatt hour like it did during the freeze in 21, it kind of makes sense not to add electricity to the grid. If you've got a couple of units already working, you're going to make a lot more money than if you allow the price to go back down to its normal levels. Today, the top price is $5 a kilowatt hour. That still rewards scarcity. And so, the legislature and the governor have not changed the market model. It rewards scarcity in the generation side, and that's separate than from what CenterPoint does. CenterPoint just distributes the electricity that is generated, that is sent to Houston by ERCOT.
Right. So, Ed, I'm hearing units and money, but as a consumer and as a CenterPoint Energy consumer, I want reliability. Does this resiliency plan do that?
Well, we won't know until it happens, I'm afraid. Obviously a big difference when you cut a plan down by $3 billion. What is going to be missed or what's being left out this time? And, can they get 80% of the benefit for a much lower cost? It's a numbers game. And, certainly we could get to 100% reliable, but that is going to cost us an awful lot more than the consumer wants to pay.
Yeah, it's what I call the yellow cup theory, Ed. They always tell us on an airplane that if there's an emergency, the yellow cups will all fall out of the ceiling and we'll all have one. But they don't really test that. They just hope that, and I've had a couple of friends that have been on those planes that they didn't all fall,
Yeah.
And so, like you say, until it happens, we just don't know if this is going to be enough. How much money do we have to throw at something like this until we know it's enough? Or is that impossible to know?
It's impossible to know. Half of CenterPoint's lines are above ground. They are vulnerable to any flying debris. There have been complaints, obviously, in the Montrose area where CenterPoint has raised some of the high lines well above the tree canopy. That's certainly going to help in the resiliency against storms. But the lines that run down closer to the ground, you can still drive up and down Westheimer, up and down Alameda. You can see lines that are compromised by trees and by vegetation. And so it's not 100% cleaned up. It has to be done at some point. And The Public Utility Commission appears to be giving CenterPoint a ready-made excuse if we do have a significant outage due to a storm at some point in the future.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with University of Houston Energy Fellow Ed Hurst about CenterPoint Energy's new resiliency plan. If you would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870.
I tell you, when you talk about trees, because I've done studies on trees, I'm sure you have too, they're great. I mean, they provide shade. They help with the heat in Houston. They are very often found more in moderate to wealthy communities as opposed to impoverished communities. Don't have as many trees. It's almost like tree scarcity in impoverished or challenged areas is a real concern. So we want trees. We encourage people to, but then we don't take care of them ourselves. That's one of the lessons.
Well, we saw this in spades, if you will, in Austin in 23 with the freeze. The city of Austin had made it a priority not to trim the trees back. And of course, the city of Austin also owns Austin Electric, Austin Energy, the utility. And the ice storm came through and took down most of the city's grid for more than a week. CenterPoint, almost comically, is talking about using AI to survey its trees and drones and satellite imaging. Well, that's been available for 20 years to other utilities, and indeed that's been employed around the country. So CenterPoint was very, very significantly behind the technology curve and is certainly having to play catch up at this point.
We have a call from Alvin from the 3rd Ward for a comment for Ed. Alvin, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
All right, thank you, guys. I wanted to say for all of the points that the gentleman enumerated earlier as to why there is less of an incentive for CenterPoint to actually be proactive, I have always maintained that CenterPoint in its current construction with the lack of competitiveness is a failed business model that will never actually get better. That's basically my stance on it.
Thank you, Alvin.
You always count on Alvin for a very direct comment here on Hello Houston. Thanks, Alvin. What do you think about that, Ed?
Well, Alvin, what would you propose? We're not going to run another set of wires across town. Maybe we could nationalize, if you will, the grid and take over it and run it ourselves, like, for example, the city of Austin. Well, it didn't work too darn well for them, has it? And, really, the one thing we're supposed to do is have government oversight of the local utility. This has been a challenge since, Westinghouse and Edison squared off in New York City as to whose power plant would be decided as the winner. You're not going to have multiple wires going into your house and choosing some sort of competitive arrangement that way. It's much simpler and a lot less expensive to have one set of wires around town and have somebody competent taking care of it. And because, Alvin, you and I can't manage CenterPoint, we rely upon the city and the county. We just had the county judge on, and the Public Utility Commission to manage the interface on our behalf. And they have not done a good job of this. We remember the mayor coming out and complaining about CenterPoint not getting to the wires fast enough. Well, Mayor Whitmire, the roads were blocked. That's on you. Not having the wires cleared on the city right of way or along the streets, that's also on the mayor. The county judge has a role in this. We need to have our regulatory oversight in this city and in this state overhauled, in my opinion.
Fair enough. We do have a call from Michael from Hockley. Michael, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Hello. This is mainly in reference with Ice Storm Uri. A few years ago, I work in the water and wastewater industry, and as we know, Houston has tons of industry all over. Most everybody have our plants and industries have large backup generators. If there was any way to take our plants off the grid when demand is so high, I don't know how much of an impact it would, but it seems like it would help an awful lot.
That's an interesting comment. Thank you for calling, Michael. Ed, what's your response to that?
So we're seeing some of that play out with the cryptocurrency miners. But the fact of the matter is the ERCOT grid as a whole failed. And the distribution of electricity relies upon the integrity of the grid holding up all across regions and across the state. And if you're connected to the grid, it doesn't matter whether you dial off or dial up to support it, unless you're the last plant in or the last consumer in. For example, the city of San Antonio owns its own utility, but the primary power plants now are located along the coast. Well, while they are perfectly balanced in terms of their demand from the San Antonio consumers and the supply from those power plants, if the wires aren't adequately charged and managed by ERCOT in between the plant and the consumers, it goes down. And indeed, that's exactly what they had happen during the freeze in 21.
All right. Ed Hers, it's always a pleasure talking with you. I always learn a little something, that's for sure. Ed Hers is an energy fellow at the University of Houston. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Celeste.
Coming up, the Women's International Festival is this weekend, and we're going to learn more about it. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues. With federal funding cuts, Houston Public Media has lost $2.2 million annually. In response, we have launched the Resiliency Fund, an urgent initiative to protect the programs and services you rely on. That includes PBS Kids, that provides free educational programming to children and families across Greater Houston. Your support of the Resiliency Fund helps keep this vital service accessible to our community. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Saturday evening at 7 on News 88.7.
We're all doing our best to learn how to live on a changing planet, from dealing with destructive wildfires or the consequences of warming waters. Communities all over the world are trying to adapt. Maine's iconic lobster fishery is no different.
We're not just supporting ourselves, we're supporting an entire Maine economy.
Join us for The Catch, a show from Foreign Policy about the seafood we eat and the impact it has on our world.
You can hear it this Sunday night at 10.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe. R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul. Music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
Support comes from the Japan America Society of Houston, presenting the 2025 Japan Festival at Herman Park, September 6th and 7th, with cultural performances, food, and more. Details at jashou.org.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV 8, a night of mystery and intrigue with Father Brown at 7, followed by the Sister Boniface Mysteries at 8, and Death in Paradise at 9. Tonight on Houston Public Media TV 8.
Support comes from Near Northwest Management District, with new commercial construction, more than 350 acres of green space, parks, and sports complex. More information at nnmd.org, at the intersection of innovation.
And now back to Hello Houston. To get your comment in on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Celeste Diaz-Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
International Women's Day nationally is March 8th, 2026, but one could say the festivities are kicking off early. That's because the International Women's Festival is coming this weekend to Midtown Park, and it is completely free. This year's theme is Meet the Women live at the festival, highlighting women leaders, creators, and innovators who are making an impact on their community. Joining us now to tell us more is Adrianna Clasen, the founder of the event, and Karina Lopez, also known as DJ Caribbeats. Adrianna and Karina, welcome to Hello Houston. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited.
Yeah, I bet.
Yes.
How was last night? You had a big
It
party?
was
What'd you have?
phenomenal. We got a proclamation from the city of Houston, which was delivered by Council Member Joaquin Martinez. It was, my heart was so happy, so full yesterday. Yes.
So, Adrianna, what sparked this idea to start this right here in Houston?
Well, I'm the founder of Men Awake, which is an all-natural wellness brand for women going through menopause. And so I have an array of products that help you with your hormones and sleep, your hair, your tea, overall wellness. And, you know, my job, my calling, my purpose is to awaken women during this time because it's not really a pause.
No.
It is not a pause.
Not a pause on men, is it?
You know what? I guess my purpose was to awaken women. And so that is what I'm doing. And so one day I was in prayer. And I was just asking God, you know, God, what can I do to honor women during this time? And the International Women's Fest just popped in my head. I Googled it, and it had not been done. And I thought one of the most beautiful things about Houston is the diversity.
Yeah.
I thought, you know what? Let's honor women from all nationalities, bring them together, bridge that gap. Where else? At a festival.
And I think that's so interesting that you talk about that. Houston's known for its diversity in where we come from, but also in industry and also in food and so many things. So, Karina, why was it important for you to be a part of this? And you're an engineer and a DJ, so you are really diverse.
I am. Thank you so much. Yeah, when the opportunity came to be the sponsoring DJing for the event, you know, I couldn't say no because this is really where my heart is. I am a licensed engineer in the state of Texas, and I love DJing. And I believe that the next generation, you know, deserves to be confident, and that's what I gained through DJing. You know, being an engineer, I was really insecure, and when I started DJing, I saw my confidence take a huge boost. And I want that for young adults, teenagers, and girls. But I have a big heart for empowering women.
People love their DJs.
Yes, they love, and we need more women in music. And it starts when they're young. So you know, I take this opportunity to share who I am and to hopefully inspire more girls to be in music.
And you're obviously talking about having more women DJs, but also more women in STEM.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so STEM it's of course a very male-dominated career, and something that I learned is that the reason why I went into engineering was because nobody told me I couldn't. Yeah. And I can only imagine how many other girls are out there and thinking, you know, I can be an engineer too, and we just need more people encouraging them to pursue it. I'm not going to say it's easy, but with the right support and with the right, you know, woman around you, I had a great mentor at that time, you can do it. So it's the same story, right? You just need the right community. Well,
engineers put things together. So I can see how that would transition into putting a party list together and making things work right.
It's actually math. So when you're DJing, you're counting the beats, right? So everything, it's a beat count, and you're doing that in your head. So I also teach song structure, and it's very obvious how you're counting in your head. So yes, we love to build.
Right. And so I'm sitting here, Adrianna, next to Karina, and I'm already like, this is amazing. And so talk to us a little bit about what people can expect on Saturday and what, you know, is different about this.
So we are honoring the legends, which are the women that paved the way for us. So we have 9 of those beautiful women that worked hard, that fought for us, you know, that made it easier. And then we have 7 categories in STEM, music, education, leadership, gastronomy, and there's one more, I'm sorry, I can't remember it. But anyway, so there's those categories, and we had a citywide nomination form sent out. And we received hundreds of names, and it was so difficult to choose, but we narrowed it down to 55 women. So we're going to have all of that on stage. They're going to receive an award, and then we're going to get the party started.
Well, tell us about the time and exactly where.
So it's going to be at Midtown Park Saturday.
Where's Midtown Park?
It's right there off of Travis, like Midtown area, behind the HCC.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, right over there.
Okay.
It's a beautiful park.
It is.
And so 3 to 9 Saturday, it is free. We have all women restaurateurs that are going to showcase their food, women vendors. One of our biggest sponsor is Up Above Media and Entertainment, and they wrote a song as an anthem for the festival called Awaken, and they are going to perform it live. So I am like super excited about that.
Adrianna, what does it mean to you as somebody who had a vision? There might be women or even guys out there that are listening to this and saying, wow, it went from an idea and now here you are and you're about to have an event with lots of people.
I just had faith. And it was like the right people were calling me every single day, and I was calling the right people every single day. And those connections that I had built throughout the years, the city people immediately said yes to me. Martha Castick Tatum, our mayor pro tem, immediately said yes. She didn't even ask for details. She's like, count me in. We're going to help. So it was wonderful to bring the community together, yes.
Karina, what time do you start? 3 to 9, when are you on?
After 4 p.m., I'll be there.
You're going to get that party going.
Definitely. It was definitely meant to be.
That's right. That's
How much fun.
Well, it sounds like a great event.
It's my new current obsession.
That's right. We're going to get to our current obsession.
Yes.
But this sounds exciting. Anything else, that you want people to know about Saturday?
Yeah, bring your whole family.
It's
a family-friendly event. It's a
great.
beautiful park. It's going to be a beautiful day, and we're going to have a good time.
And you're right about that. It is going to be a beautiful sunny day, so
absolutely.
you picked the right one.
Right.
Adrianna Clasen is the founder of the International Women's Festival event happening this Saturday, and Karina Lopez is also known as DJ Caribbeats. Adrianna and Karina, thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can come back for the recap whenever y'all are ready to have us back. Absolutely.
Y'all are always welcome to join us on Hello Houston. And that brings us to the end of our show. Tomorrow, we will have more great events for you during our Last Minute Plan segment.
All right.
Thank you for listening, joining, chatting, calling into Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation.